What is your most anticipated 2025 release? Hey there, I'm Alicia, and today we're going to be talking about upcoming 2025 releases that I'm really excited about. This next part is going to be books by authors that are new to me, so I've never read anything by them. So the first book is Ibis by Justin Haynes, or Ibis by Justin Haynes. This is set to come out sometime in February of 2025, and it's a cross-generational Caribbean story of migration, superstition, and a search for family. It also features themes on mother-daughter relationships, critiques on the refugee crisis, as well as supernatural elements and potential witches. We have All the Water in the World by Eiren Caffall. This is set to come out January 7th, and this is a literary thriller. In this one, we follow a girl and her family, or found family, I'm not quite sure, who are taking refuge in this abandoned museum in New York after all of the glaciers started to melt and completely cover the earth in water. So we follow them after a superstorm ends up compromising where they currently live, and they have to go in search of somewhere else to live. There's a lot of climate change books that are coming out, specifically set in worlds where everything is surrounded by water. I ended up reading Private Rights earlier this year, and that one didn't quite work for me, so I'm a little hesitant and nervous going into this one. But I feel like All the Water in the World sounds closer to something like Station 11, which I adored. I'm hoping I love this book. We also have Darkmotherland by Samrat Upadhyay. This is set in the distant future in an earthquake-ravaged Nepal, and it's a dystopian novel. That's all that I know about this one. No, actually, I do know one more thing. This is going to be like 700 or 800 pages long. It's going to be a thick one. I don't read a lot of huge books. Normally I read books between 300 and 500 pages. Well, at least non-fantasy books. I don't read a lot of non-fantasy or sci-fi books that are over 400 or 500 pages. So I'm interested to see if we needed all of that. On January 4th or 14th, I can't read my own handwriting, we have Watermoon by Samantha, Sotto, Yambao. This is going to be a cozy fantasy, and I don't read cozy. Those are not the types of books I gravitate towards, but you know, I'm trying to expand my comfort zone. It sounds really cute. So we're going to follow a woman who inherits a pawn shop where you can sell your regrets. Also on January 14th, we have The Queen's Spade. This is by Sarah Raughley, and it is a historical fiction. In this one, we follow a kidnapped African princess who plots the takedown of the monarchy and of Queen Victoria, and apparently it's inspired by true events, so I'm excited for this one. I'm actually reading another historical fiction right now, The Ballad of Jacques de la Haye, where we follow a notorious black woman who became a pirate in the Caribbean, and it's also based on true events, and I'm loving that one. So I think The Queen's Spade is going to be right up my alley. In February of 2025, we have Loca by Alejandro Heredia. I believe this is his debut novel, and he is a queer Afro-Dominican author. And in this particular book, we follow 1 year in the lives of two best friends as they navigate friendship and love and loss and their own identity. I ended up reading Family Meal by Brian Washington, and that book quickly became a favorite of mine. This one sounds to have similar elements, so I'm really intrigued to see if I like it. On April 10th, we have The Accidentals by Guadalupe Nettel. This is actually a collection of 8 short stories, and I don't know anything about these short stories. I do own books by Guadalupe Nettel, and I have not read, but I'm excited for this one. I've been meaning to dive into her works, and this is the perfect motivation. Then on February 25th, we have Death Takes Me by Cristina Rivera Garza. This is supposed to be a mystery thriller. I do have another book by Cristina Rivera Garza, but I believe it's a nonfiction. It has a pretty blue cover. I haven't read it. I do own it. I didn't get to it this year, but I'm excited nonetheless. So in Death Takes Me, we follow a professor who ends up finding a dead body in an alley with a cryptic message written on the walls, and so she becomes the lead informant on this case, and then more clues keep appearing. So I think it's gonna be like a crime mystery novel, and yeah, that sounds really good to me. So in March, we have Malinalli by Veronica Chapa. I believe this is her debut novel, and this is a retelling of a very controversial Mexican figure. It's the story of Malitzin, or more widely known as La Malinche. She was a Nahua interpreter to what's his name? Cortez, something Cortez. Hernan Cortez. There we go. On May 25, we have The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. This is going to be a dark fantasy. I haven't read anything by Joe Abercrombie. I haven't read anything by Joe Abercrombie, but people say that he writes some of the best morally great characters, and I love morally great characters. So I decided to finally dive into his books. I do actually own The Blade itself, so I could start with that one, but I'm being strategic here because there's a couple of fantasy series that I want to start in 2025 and I don't want to get overwhelmed. So if I start this one, then I don't have to continue on with the series, or I can't continue on with the series until we get a new one. So I'm being strategic. Yeah, so this is The Devils, and from what I've gathered about the plot, this is going to be like a fantasy Suicide Squad type of story. Now, I have been getting more and more into nonfiction, and I want to continue that into 2025. So I do have 2 books that I'm excited for that come out in 2025. The first one is No More Tears: The Dark Secrets of Johnson & Johnson by Gardiner Harris. This is set to come out April 8th of 2025, and it's an expose on Johnson & Johnson, its unethical sales practices, its deceitful corporate practices, and lies and cover-ups. I ended up reading, what's that book by, there's this nonfiction book that I read about the Sackler family like 2 years ago. I forgot the name of it already. There was a nonfiction book that I read called Empire of Pain, which is about the Sackler family by Patrick Radden Keefe, I want to say. It completely blew my mind. It's a nonfiction book that read like a fiction book. There was so much drama, so much deceit, so many lies, and I ate it all up. And I've been chasing that high ever since. And I think this Johnson & Johnson book is also going to rock my world. So I also have The Volunteer: The Failure of the Death Penalty in America. This will be published also in April, and this is by Gianna Toboni. So it looks like this one is going to examine the US prison system through one death row inmate's journey. It just sounds really timely and poignant, and again, I want to read more nonfiction. I want to see what works for me, what doesn't. So I'm excited about these 2. So those are all the 2025 upcoming releases that I'm really excited about.